Money for over 1,000 scholarships fundraised during the Futures in Education virtual gala. I'm Emily Druby, and coming up, I'll take you inside the event.
Plus, a mixed bag on the number of COVID cases in red zones, but restrictions are being lifted where the number of infections are going down.
Fighting childhood hunger behind the scenes. I'm Jessica Easthope with how one nonprofit is getting food to students and their families, even when they're not in school.
And why a new documentary about Pope Francis is generating headlines. The news starts right now.
$250, all right!
Raising money for a brighter future. Families in the diocese will now be able to give their kids a Catholic education. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. The Futures in Education Gala, which raises money for scholarships in the Diocese of Brooklyn, surpassed its goal. Because of the pandemic, last night's event was held virtually, and the need this year was greater than ever. Currents News' Emily Druby reports.
From this to this.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thanks, Rosanna.
And this is how it was done.
So welcome everyone to tonight's first virtual gala.
A virtual version of the annual Futures in Education Gala, a night that raises millions of dollars. The event is crucial in funding scholarships that help give kids a Catholic education in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
To lose it would be a disaster.
We give out every year about $8 million in scholarships. So we cannot, have something like this just pass by. $2 million is like 25% of our yearly donations. So it's very important that we have this.
The money goes to those who need it the most.
Many people want to come to our schools. Well, what's the issue? Tuition. Can't afford it.
Over 30% of their families live at or below the poverty line and have a median income of $35,000 a year. This year, the scholarships are more important than ever, with many families hurting financially from the pandemic.
The need is greater. There's more kids that have been affected in families by the pandemic, and they don't have the funds to attend our schools, so we really have to help even more children.
With unemployment skyrocketing during the pandemic, families need more help. Futures in Education has seen more requests for aid.
It's all for the children.
So, knowing how important this event is, the team pulled together in the face of adversity, creating a virtual gala with entertainment, stories from families, fundraising, and everyone's favorite moment, a sing-along.
Touching hands. Don't touch.
Even with this gala completely reimagined, they still hit their $2 million fundraising goal, a major triumph, one that will help the kids. In Williamsburg, Emily Druby, Currents News.
To watch the full Futures Gala, just stay right here. We'll show the event in full after tonight's newscast at 7:30. And it's not too late to donate to the cause. Just head to futuresineducation.org. Governor Andrew Cuomo is making changes to his red zone hotspots after looking at the number of COVID cases in each specific neighborhood.
The adjustments we're going to make are these. To exit a red zone under 3% after 10 days, 4% in less populated areas.
So that means restrictions are being eased in 2 red zone sections of Queens, but in Brooklyn's red zones, no changes because of the ongoing infection rates there. Non-essential businesses can reopen starting tomorrow in areas where restrictions were lifted. Schools in those areas can also switch back to in-person learning on Monday. The food crisis in New York City is getting worse. Since the pandemic began, the number of people who are at risk has grown to more than 2 million. But one grandmother in Bay Ridge is doing what she can to help. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has her story.
Peanut butter and jelly. During the coronavirus pandemic, the USDA is reporting the number of American children who are food insecure has gone from 11 million to 18 million.
We keep putting it out on Facebook.
Teresa Monforte Caraballo is trying to feed as many of those children as she can. Teresa is the founder and executive director of Grandma's Love, a nonprofit that feeds hungry children in Brooklyn and Queens in a way that guarantees they feel no shame.
We had very plain nondescript backpacks. In the corner would be little initials of the child. So no one really noticed that there was an extra backpack going home with certain children.
But the pandemic turned Grandma's Love's operation upside down. Children attending school online made it hard and in some cases impossible for Teresa and her team to get food to those in need.
Door drop-offs is what we called it. We hired a delivery gentleman. He'd take all our bags to the children that we would normally just drop at schools for.
Grandma's Love had to adapt and do it quickly because the number of families who needed food was growing by the day. 2.4 million New Yorkers are food insecure.
The phone was ringing off the hook, and the need was just there, and it kept increasing and increasing.
Before the pandemic, Grandma's Love was feeding 125 students and their families. During the pandemic, that number rose to 450 families.
This is a bag of food.
Every bag feeds a family of 4, but some bags can be customized to fit more or include a personal touch that makes a world of difference.
Mrs. Chan's favorite biscuits.
Fighting for every single dollar of funding, Teresa says even when Grandma's Love has had nothing, she held on.
Through the grace of God, even when we're down with nothing, something happens. It's faith that keeps us going.
Virtual school could be the future for many students, but as long as there are children who need food, Grandma's Love will find a way. In Bay Ridge, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
So many Americans are struggling to make ends meet and are counting on help from a second stimulus bill. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin are said to be making progress on a comprehensive $2 trillion coronavirus package ahead of Election Day. Meanwhile, today, Senate Democrats shot down a partial package worth $500 billion put forth by Republicans. Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, is pleading guilty to federal criminal charges in a record $8 billion settlement with the government. The company paid doctors to write opioid prescriptions, leading to massive painkiller abuse by millions. The settlement money will be used to fund opioid treatment programs. As part of the deal, Purdue Pharma is being dissolved and its assets will be used to create a new government-controlled company. A new documentary about Pope Francis is generating headlines as critics claim the Holy Father's statements on same-sex civil unions is a step forward for the Church's support of LGBT Catholics.
This is a man who's opened his heart to the hearts of all of humanity.
The film, called Francesco, premiered in the Rome Film Festival on Wednesday and will premiere in the U.S. Savannah Film Festival this Sunday. The documentary chronicles the life and ministry of the Pope and his approach on social issues. According to reports, the Holy Father says in the documentary, homosexuals have a right to be part of a family. Joining us now with some insight into what the Pope said in this documentary is the editor of Crux, John Allen. And John, these comments from Pope Francis, how consistent are they with his past statements on the subject?
Well, look, Christine, this is the 21st century, so there's no reason something actually has to be news in order to create a sensation. And, that's the situation we find ourselves in. What Pope Francis says in this documentary is completely consistent with things he has said both before and after his election to the papacy. When he was the president of the Argentine Bishops' Conference as the Cardinal of Buenos Aires in the early 2000s, when Argentina was facing a debate over the legalization of gay marriage, then Cardinal Bergoglio said that in his opinion, it shouldn't be marriage, but that civil unions would be a perfectly legitimate alternative. As Pope, in a 2014 interview with Corriere della Sera, which is basically the New York Times of Italy, it's the paper of record here, he said much the same thing, that marriage is between a man and a woman, but in terms of regularizing the legal standing of other forms of cohabitation, he didn't have any problem with it. And so, in that sense, this is really the Pope repeating himself. And it's really only the hype that anybody who has a documentary about the Pope coming out would try to create that, has us talking about it once again.
Exactly. So what is the Pope exactly saying here? Many secular outlets, like you say, are calling it a shift from doctrine. I mean, is it? He's not saying he's allowing church unions or sacramental marriages for same-sex couples.
Absolutely not. It's no shift from doctrine whatsoever. You know, first of all, the Catholic Church does not have a doctrine about the legal standing of forms of cohabitation. That is a civil and secular question that is up to civil governments to establish. What the Catholic Church has a dogma about is marriage. And Pope Francis has been abundantly clear from day one, and the statement in this documentary does not in any sense represent a departure from that sacramental marriage is exclusively a relationship between a man and a woman that is permanent, that is it's for life, and it is open to new life. And by the way, let's recall that the first time the nation of Italy actually adopted a civil union statute, debated it, and then adopted it, it wasn't under Francis. It was under Benedict XVI. And although Benedict XVI did not personally address it, the message from the Vatican then was the same, that as long as you are not talking about redefining marriage, we don't have any position on what you do on other forms of relationships. So not only is this not new for Pope Francis, it's not even new for the Vatican.
All right, I know you mentioned about the early 2000s when he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires, but in 2013, in the book On Heaven and Earth, the Holy Father, they say, didn't completely reject the possibility of civil unions, but did say that laws assimilating homosexual relationships to marriage are an anthropological regression. So could this be considered an evolution?
No, I don't think so, because I think his comments in this film have to do with how do you legally recognize factual relationships among people. I think his concern has always been that with the language gay marriage, and when you start talking about gay marriage, because in his opinion, then, and of course it's not just his opinion, it is the official teaching of the Roman Catholic Church, that marriage is exclusively a union between a man and a woman. And as I say, really all that's going on here is that some documentarians, some filmmakers, very cleverly got the Pope to repeat something he has said multiple times and are packaging it as some kind of, dramatic new declaration.
Right.
And that's about it.
And they're getting press. All right, editor of Crux, John Allen, always great having you on to talk about the Pope.
Thanks, Christine.
There's a lot more news headed your way. The before and after. What's next for All Saints Church after the wildfires out west? We're talking with the parish deacon. Plus, the message from the pastor of a church that was torched by protesters in Chile. And a crying baby in church. Why the Pope says it is a beautiful thing.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
A wildfire in Colorado has been raging for more than 2 months. More than 100 structures have burned and thousands of homeowners in the fire's path have evacuated. One man decided to stay and fight the flames himself to protect his property. Liz Kodalek has his story.
That's my neighbor's house.
Friday night in Bellevue, Mike Slate was by himself.
That's my house right there. It's getting a little too close for comfort.
Soon, he was about to come face to face with the edge of the Cameron Peak fire.
I had felt so helpless on how to help him. And I could see it on our game camera coming to my phone. Those pictures that I showed you, they're all from my game camera, and I could see it in our front pasture, and I felt very helpless.
Mike's fiancée Janine had left that morning after the couple watched homes around them go up in flames. They got evacuation orders on Wednesday, but it took a few days to gather up their animals. Janine is now in Windsor. Mike decided to stay.
I just knew I had to do this no matter what, and I was willing to take pretty much any risk necessary.
The night the fire approached, all Mike had to fight it was a generator and a hose. Without knowing how much water he had in his well, he waited until the flames were right in front of him to start spraying.
The fire flames are just everywhere, 3 sides of our house, and I'm just running around with the garden hose squirting everything I can reach. And then the flames were so intense that I actually got a sunburn from it at 1 a.m.
His neighbor was fighting too, digging fire lines on the edge of his property. A fire truck eventually came and tonight their homes still stand.
I mean, that's our livelihood. We both work full-time jobs. To be able to live out there, you hate to lose something you've worked so hard for.
Janine is still watching from her Red Cross hotel room as the fire now burns to the east. Mike is still staying with the danger of another firefight looming on the ridge above him.
What happens if I don't stay? That's what really worries me.
Again, that was Liz Kotelik reporting. In California, more than 6,700 firefighters remain on the front lines of 20 wildfires across the state, including the Slater fire. On September 8th, that fire tore through Sacramento, burning All Saints Church, a mission of Sacred Heart's parish, to the ground. Deacon Charles Werner serves that parish and joins us now to tell us how they're holding up. And Deacon, thank you for being here with us. We're glad you're safe. Tell us a little bit about what happened when you heard the fires were coming. What goes through your head? It's got to be scary.
It was. We have a lot of fires up here. We live in the middle of the national forest, so wildfires are a part of life up here. But this one was particularly fierce, and by the time we got up there, the flames had already crested the ridge around town and were starting to burn down in toward the town. And so we got into the church. I was able to recover the Blessed Sacrament. I was able to recover the relics from the altar, and some of the sacred vessels, and a few of the vestments. It was a very, very sad thing because I could see how fast the fire was burning.
Yeah, it's amazing that you were able to save all of that. I mean, and then the church completely burned down, correct?
Yes, it has completely burned. The structure is gone. But the church in Happy Camp is the people, and they are still there.
You know, I was going to ask that. These wildfires are nothing new for you and the people in your parish. So how do you keep the faith when the fires keep happening?
These are tough people, and they do have a strong faith. And I mean, we've made it through all these months of the COVID craziness like all the rest of us have. And this is one more thing, but it's not going to beat us either. The devil only wins when we give up, and we're not going to.
That's right. So what is the plan moving forward? Are you getting help to rebuild?
Well, we do have insurance on the church, and we're kind of in a limbo right now because they can't do anything as far as filling claims until the area is declared safe, and we're still unable to get up there to do anything other than take pictures of the damage and get right back out again. We have received permission from the town of Happy Camp to start worshiping in a community room that they've got. They've given us permission to do that. And so we will continue that as long as we need to. And good Lord willing, we'll have that church rebuilt and be back in there at some point in the future.
I'm glad to hear that. Deacon Charles Werner from the Diocese of Sacramento. Thanks for being with us, and we are praying for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And if you would like to donate to the Fire Assistance Fund, you can send a check to the Diocese of Sacramento at 2110 Broadway, and the zip code there is 95818. The pastor of one of those churches in Chile destroyed by protesters is also speaking out, urging Catholics to reject revenge. Father Pedro Narbona of the Church of the Assumption in Santiago is asking people to open up their hearts and deeply reflect on the Chile that we want to build. The house of worship was destroyed during protests last Sunday. Father Narbona says the Chilean police are still investigating the fire, and after that, the Archdiocese will evaluate how to best rebuild the parish community spiritually, morally, and physically. Still to come on Currents News, why Pope Francis says you should never silence a crying baby in church. Plus, the impact the pandemic is having on an infant's development and what parents can do. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. We've all been there when a baby starts wailing during Mass, often thankful it's not our child who's crying. But Pope Francis says we shouldn't try to make them stop or run out of the church.
Mai far tacere un bambino che piange in chiesa, mai. Perché è la voce che attira la tenerezza di Dio.
And that's not the first time the Holy Father said something along those lines. Back in January, he called children crying during Mass a beautiful homily. Still, a parent's worries never end, even if the Pope himself gives the children a pass. During the current coronavirus crisis, many parents remain concerned about their children's development. Currents News' Jessica Easthope asked the question on the minds of many: are babies getting enough stimulation?
10-month-old Emma Josephine just started crawling. She's even mastered repeating sounds. Something her mom, Camille Sajecki, is especially excited about.
She's talking and babbling more than ever every day, and it's just amazing to watch her grow.
Though Emma's home comes complete with her favorite toys and the love of her parents, she hasn't had as much outside stimulation as she would have before the COVID-19 pandemic.
She was seeing family on a regular basis, her cousins every Friday, and now she's seeing those people through a small screen on your phone via FaceTime.
Hi! Camille started to worry it would impact Emma's development.
If this wasn't going on, we would do mommy and me classes, seeing other families who have small babies. Now, with this, it's very difficult to do any of those things because we're scared.
Dr. Robert Tabali, an infectious disease expert with the Catholic Medical Association, says Camille's concerns are valid.
Any delay that they may have in their development, in their psychomotor interactions, in their physical abilities, they will be able to pick up on that later.
There you go.
But it's not physical development Dr. Tabali is worried about. He says babies and children can pick up on the stress and fears of their parents.
Children could be overwhelmed by taking on the anxiety and fear that parents have. They actually take that on as part of an attribute of their personality.
Camille says Emma's becoming more aware by the day. So at home, she and her husband Sean keep it positive, no matter how stressed they might feel.
We definitely try to keep things as positive as they were before this started, because we know that she feeds off us and we know that she feels what we feel. And if we're down and stressed one day, she'll be right with us.
Dr. Tabali says until things are back to normal, his advice to parents is put yourself in the mindset of a baby like Emma just learning to crawl.
There you go.
Be careful, but have no fear. On Staten Island, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Remember, you can watch Futures in Education's virtual fundraising gala right after this. There you'll have the opportunity to support Catholic education throughout the Diocese of Brooklyn. Hope to see you again next time.